Hello. Welcome back to another edition of Let's Talk Short Fiction and Let's Talk H.P. Lovecraft. We are moving right along today with my continuation of my attempt to review the complete H.P. Lovecraft body of work, which includes about 53 short stories, 4 novellas, and 1 novel. And today we're doing The Thing on the Doorstep, written 1933 but not published until 1937 in Weird Tales. It is, of course, part of the Cthulhu Mythos, and that is what makes this story the most interesting in my opinion. So the story is narrated by a character named Daniel Upton, who has just killed his best friend, Edward Derby. The story is an account of their long relationship and the events leading up to him shooting Edward in his cell at Arkham Asylum, with the intent of proving that he did kill Edward's body, but in fact he is not a murderer. So Edward is a sort of shy, frail, coddled, bookish young person, spoiled and sort of weakened by his overbearing parents, who he lives with until meeting Asenath Waite, the daughter of Ephraim Waite of Innsmouth, who he meets at Miskatonic University at some sort of party or function or mixer. He's immediately captivated by Asenath, who is disliked by her peers, mainly the women, because it seems like she has this sort of gift for hypnotizing them and making them feel like they've switched bodies. But Edward and Asenath, they fall in love over their mutual love of the occult, and they marry and they they move into a house together to begin their family. But over the next few years, Edward's personality begins to change, and Daniel notices this. They have a lot of little signals, like just the way that Edward would typically ring the doorbell with 3 knocks and 2 chimes of the bell, and the little things like that which changed, and he sort of subliminally noticed that something's going on here. Handwriting differences and things like that, and personality as well. But his personality is changing, and at first, maybe it is a good thing because he is sort of shy and bookish, and maybe he's coming out of his shell, having sort of transferred his dependency from his parents to his wife. But gradually, his differences become more and more alarming, and Edward finds himself suddenly far from home, not remembering how he got there. And then eventually he becomes convinced that the rumors about Asenath's ability to switch bodies is actually true, and she's been doing this with him, continually locking him out of his own body for longer and longer periods of time, and taking him into stranger and stranger situations where he suddenly finds himself awoken when she loses control of him. Worst of all is that Asenath is not quite human. She is a member of the Waite family, the daughter of Ephraim Waite, sort of a known black magician from Innsmouth, which is a story that is, or a location in H.P. Lovecraft's universe that is steeped in horror, sort of like Dunwich is. In the case of Innsmouth, they're a coastal town who seems to have made some sort of pact with the ancient ones. But Edward eventually tells Daniel about these issues, and he becomes more and more stressed out and alarmed, behaving more and more absurdly, before eventually doing something about it. Daniel stands up for himself and declares that he has found a way to lock her out of his mind and become himself again. So he comes over one day, he tells Daniel that he's done this, and that Asenath will no longer be around, that they're going to get divorced, and that she's moving away to New York. But months pass, and Daniel's behavior becomes bizarre again. He's eventually committed to Arkham Asylum through the worst of his sort of fits of outrage and insanity. Until Edward, who has been kind of declared his guardian, eventually gets a call, and the doctors there say that he's getting better, and I think that we're going to observe him a little bit while longer, but eventually he'll be fit for release very soon. Just before the night when Edward is to be, or Yes, Edward. When Edward's to be released, Daniel gets a phone call, just sort of a gurgling noise, and then later that night, the doorbell is rung in the usual way in which he rings Edward's doorbell or Daniel's doorbell. But there is somebody at the door who is not quite Daniel. It's sort of a deformed creature covering itself in a coat and a hat. It's actually kind of comical sounding if you think about it. But he can't speak, but he hands our narrator, Daniel, a letter, which tells him essentially that he is trapped in what remains of Asenath's body. He actually murdered and buried Asenath, but she found a way back into his body, and this is what he's left with. He won't be able to hold it together much longer, but he wants Daniel to go to the asylum, kill his body, cremate it so that it cannot be passed on. And the truth of the matter is that Asenath was never Asenath herself. She's actually been occupied by Ephraim, her father, who has been jumping bodies probably for centuries, refusing to die. And that is the plot. So yeah, guys, not a bad story as far as the dozen or so Lovecraft stories that I've read so far. I think the most interesting thing about it is that it is heavily steeped in the Cthulhu Mythos. You have all the sort of the usual essential subjects and players, Arkham, Innsmouth, the Necronomicon is mentioned, von Unasprechlichen Kulten, another interesting forbidden book. Of course, the Waite family from Innsmouth, and of course, Shoggoths are mentioned at various times within the story. Has to be one of the earliest examples of a body snatching story in popular fiction. Certainly the earliest that I can think of. It's interesting to think about that because had it been written today, I think we would talk about multiple personality syndrome and things like that, which kind of sets you wondering, all these people that we think are insane or sick, what's really going on? Is there a supernatural element? You never know. But it's a great story overall. I think the only weakness is really the ending. I think it was weak to, at the very end of the book, use a letter written by Edward to Daniel to sort of give away the truth, the conclusion, because quite frankly, the story is obvious enough that we already know what the conclusion is, so it's really unnecessary to sort of have a half a page written letter trying to spell it all out for us. I think that's the only weakness, but it's forgivable because the story itself is compelling and interesting, and I quite enjoyed it. So yeah, guys, that is The Thing on the Doorstep by H.P. Lovecraft, the latest here on Let's Talk of our continuing series of the complete H.P. Lovecraft's fictions. And until next time, see ya.